Hey guys, tonight's movie review, well, I guess technically it's not a movie review, it's a TV review. Because tonight I got to go to an early screening that Fox put on for some of its new fall programming. It's Tuesday night lineup that includes Grandfathered, The Grinder, and Scream Queens. So a little bit about those shows. The first one, Grandfathered. It's starring John Stamos, and his character is the ultimate bachelor. He never really outgrew that phase, and he owns this like upscale restaurant, and so he's really good at schmoozing the customers, and he's really good at the stories that he lays on the ladies and all that kind of stuff, and has this amazing apartment and all the typical bachelor type of things. He, is living the bachelor life. And near the beginning of the show, there's a young man who comes into his restaurant and kind of sheepishly goes up to him and is like, "Hey, so you dated my mom about 26 years ago for a while, and she got pregnant, and I'm your son. And not only am I your son, but this is my daughter. You're a grandfather." So in an instant, boom, Bachelor turns into not only a father, but a grandfather. So you can only imagine how a bachelor would take that. Surprisingly, he decides like, hey, I want to be involved with this son. I want to be involved with this granddaughter. But of course, being a bachelor, as you can imagine, he doesn't know much about being a father or a grandfather at all. So, of course, that's where a lot of the comedy comes into play. And not going too much into the storyline, I mean, that's really what this show, that's the meat and potatoes of the show, is taking this guy from one world, a bachelor world, and boom, all of a sudden he's in family world. And, all the things that could possibly go wrong in that transition. And there's also a twist near the very end of the episode, which you definitely did see coming, but I'm not going to share it with you. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's interested in seeing the show, but just know that there is kind of something that comes to light in the last few minutes of the show. The show itself, I think, it was a decent premiere episode. One thing about all three of these shows and premiere episodes in general, I mean, normally a premiere episode isn't the greatest. A lot of shows struggle in the first episode because you're trying to establish everything so fast. I mean, you're jumping right into something, but you're having to take time to introduce the characters, introduce the storyline, make all that mesh, and it's not really that easy in a premiere episode. On this one, I think it does an okay job. I mean, it establishes definitely who the different characters are, what their relationships or non-relationships are, and gives you an indication of where the story is going. Some of the writing I thought was a little hokey, a little cheesy. As the episode progressed, it got hokier, in my opinion. But this is a show that, I would give it a second, third episode, trying to get into it, see where it's going to go, how it's going to progress. I think it's worth giving it a little bit of time to breathe, because it was strong enough. The second show is The Grinder, and that stars Rob Lowe and Fred Savage. And first of all, I mean, I'm going to tell you about the show, but right off the bat, it's great to see these guys back on the small screen again. Rob Lowe has been in a few projects over the years, but especially Fred Savage, who's best known for the Wonder Years. It was great to see him back on the small screen. This show, the two of them play brothers, and Rob Lowe is a Hollywood actor, and he plays on this long-running law show called The Grinder, where he is this like hard-hitting attorney, and his show has just ended its run near the beginning of the episode. So he's back at home in his small town, kind of contemplating like, what are my next steps? What am I doing? What am I gonna do? And then you have Fred Savage, who plays his brother, and he is an attorney in real life, kind of a small town attorney. And the two of them are basically polar opposites. You've got this pretty boy Hollywood guy with all the cockiness and confidence in the world, and Fred Savage is a family man. He's married, he has kids, and he's not always very secure in what he's saying. He has all these note cards he carries around with him when he's presenting a case. And so you kind of take the two of them, polar opposite personalities, throw them in together, and add the courtroom and the courtroom drama. And that's pretty much what this show's about. As far as the story, I thought that this one in particular was really strong. The acting was very strong between the two main characters. I thought Rob Lowe and Fred Savage, I mean, they're examples of what veteran TV people are. I mean, they just nail it. And their connection to each other is really good. They play off of each other very well. I thought the supporting cast was pretty strong. And I think this is a story that could really develop in lots of different directions. You have all sorts of different kind of cases that Fred Savage's character can be pursuing. And I mean, I know there are a lot of law shows out there, but I thought that this was really strong, really funny, and for a premiere episode, really good. And this is definitely one that I'm going to add to my DVR. I'm excited about it. And the last show was Scream Queens, starring Emma Roberts and Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, this one is probably the most highly anticipated of the three. Some of the producers on it being Brad Falchuk and Ryan Murphy, who did Glee, which was very successful for Fox. Also, one of my very favorite shows, American Horror Story. They're both producers on that as well. And so this show is kind of like taking a mash of Glee and American Horror Story and mashing them together for primetime television. So the storyline basically is that Emma Roberts, her name is Chanel, and she is the Kappa Kappa Gamma president. She is like queen bee of this sorority, and very stereotypical, you know, head to toe, has to look so fashionable at all times, just really like ugly to people, really controlling, all the negative things that you could imagine about sorority. Like, that is her to a T. And then Jamie Lee Curtis's character, she plays the dean of the school where this sorority is located. And the two of them butt heads pretty early into the series. And kind of what comes of that is the dean says, okay, I'll lay off on the sorority a little bit, but guess what? You have to let anybody who wants to initiate and pledge, you have to let them pledge. So they get like the strangest group of girls ever. Of course, Emma Roberts' character is not happy about that at all. So you have that going on, and then people start getting knocked off at the sorority. And not to give too much away, but there are a couple deaths in the first episode right off the bat. So that's kind of what the show is. The story on this one was pretty disappointing. I mean, I kind of know where they were trying to go. It was kind of like B-movie, but TV version. It was very stylized, very, very dark comedy. But to me, the writing just didn't quite work. The acting, particularly from Emma Roberts and Jamie Lee Curtis, I thought both of them were actually very strong. Really liked their acting. All the peripheral characters, I thought most of them were actually pretty weak, and you could probably cut some of them out. But yeah, this didn't really work for me. And maybe I'd give it a second episode, but this was a pretty weak premiere episode, and pretty disappointing. So as far as grades go, if I were to grade the three, kind of in order of what I thought was the worst to the best, I would give Scream Queens a D. Just to me, really fell flat. I know they were going for dark humor and stuff. To me, most of it wasn't very funny. At least Emma Roberts and Jamie Lee Curtis can act really well. Maybe they'll act their way into making this a better show. The second best show, in my opinion, would be Grandfathered. I would give that a B minus. I think that it could go either way. I mean, as I said, it kind of got hookier through the episode. I'm hoping that they kind of let some of that hokiness go, because there was a good story there and some good jokes. I hope they don't take the easy way out on this show. I hope that they kind of do something a little different. And I would give this one a couple episodes to see what it's like. And then The Grinder, I would give that a B. I thought that that was a really strong premiere episode. I think that you have two TV vets that it's so refreshing to see them back, and they are still on top of their game. And that show I thought was funny. It had the best comedy response from the crowd as well. They were most excited about it, buzzing about that show, which I think was a surprise to a lot of people. I don't think that's what they thought they'd enjoy the most, and a lot of people did. So that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it, as always. If you like what you saw, please, 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 please like and subscribe to my page. I'd really appreciate it. And you can see more movie and maybe even more TV reviews in the future. And also, I'd love to know what your thoughts are about these shows. Which one in particular you're most looking forward to, or which actor, because you've got so many big names coming in to do these shows. Like, who are you excited about seeing? I'd love to know. And also, for the first time ever, at this, they actually gave like some swag. And so I've got two of these little packages, and it's got a Scream Queens Fox little tote bag. And in the tote bag, we've got a GILF, like MILF, but for grandfathers. Got a GILF little hat, and who could not be without a Fred Savage t-shirt of his lovely, lovely face. So, anyways, I have two of these, and I'd love to give them to you guys because I appreciate that you'd even take the time to watch this. So, for everybody who comments, I'll just pick two people randomly by September 15th and go ahead and mail these out so that you'll have them by the time the shows come on, because Scream Queens premieres on September 22nd, and the other two shows, Grandfathered and The Grinder, premiere on September 29th. So that way you'd have all this stuff by the time the shows came on. So, yep. I'd love to hear all your comments and what you guys think, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.